It was supposed to be just another night. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just me, a bag of stale popcorn, and my usual habit of scrolling through late-night live streams. Most of them were boring. People playing video games, influencers ranting about drama, or fake paranormal investigators trying to spook their audience. Then, I stumbled onto something different. A guy named Ethan Graves was broadcasting live from an abandoned motel on the outskirts of his town. He wasn't a big streamer, maybe a few thousand followers, but there was something compelling about him. No over-the-top reactions, no clickbait nonsense. Just a guy exploring a derelict place, trying to figure out what made it tick. I clicked in. The chat was alive with excitement. "Dude, you hearing that? Nah, he's messing with us. Look behind you, bro." The usual stuff. Ethan was standing in a dimly lit hallway, his flashlight casting long, eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper. The motel had been abandoned for decades after a string of strange disappearances. No bodies were ever found, just empty rooms, personal belongings left untouched. A ghost story that had faded with time. Ethan was in the middle of a sentence when he froze. His breathing hitched. I leaned forward. "Hello?" he called out, his voice barely above a whisper. Something creaked in the darkness. The sound wasn't coming from Ethan. It was from somewhere just outside the frame. I turned up my volume, scanning the screen for movement. The chat exploded. "WTF was that? Did y'all hear that whisper?" Ethan took a slow step back. His face was pale, eyes wide. "Guys, someone's here." I felt a chill run down my spine. This didn't feel like an act. The camera jittered as Ethan turned. The hallway stretched behind him, empty, just rotting wood and dust dancing in the beam of his flashlight. Then, a breath, soft, right into the microphone. My own breath hitched. Ethan spun around, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. "Nothing. I think I should go," he muttered, forcing a nervous laugh. The chat exploded in agreement. "Yeah, dude, get out." Ethan took off toward the exit, his camera shaking with every hurried step. The motel door was just ahead, light from the outside street lamps spilling in. Safety was right there. Then, a deafening static blast erupted from my speakers. The screen glitched, just for a second, and Ethan, he was gone. The camera clattered to the floor, spinning on its side. The chat went wild. Messages flooded in so fast they blurred together. "What the hell? Where'd he go? Yo, was that a jump cut? Is this a joke?" The camera kept streaming. The motel hallway was empty now, save for the dim glow of Ethan's flashlight rolling against the floorboards.
No footsteps.
No sound.
No Ethan.
Just nothing. I waited, expecting him to jump back in frame, laughing, saying it was all part of the act. But he never did. For the next 15 minutes, the camera continued broadcasting nothing but an empty motel. Then the screen flickered.
Steam offline.
I sat there, staring at the screen, my heart hammering in my chest. And that's when I got a notification. A new live stream, from Ethan's account. But the title was just a single period. No description.
No thumbnail.
I hesitated before clicking. The screen went black for a moment. Then the video feed flickered to life. It was Ethan's camera, still lying on the floor of the motel. But something was different. The flashlight was gone. The hallway was darker. And the audio, a faint whispering crackled through the speakers. Indistinct. Hushed. Almost eager. Then, in the farthest corner of the frame, something moved. I barely had time to process it before the stream cut to black.
Steam offline.
I sat there, hands trembling. The chat had vanished. The stream was gone. And Ethan? He was never found. I barely slept that night. My mind kept replaying Ethan's disappearance, the way he just vanished.
No struggle. No scream.
Just gone. The next morning I checked his profile again. No new streams.
No updates.
His followers were losing their minds. "Yo, someone call the cops. This has to be fake, right? Guys, his account is still live. But he's not responding." I wasn't the only one who felt it. This wasn't normal. It wasn't some cheap horror stunt. Something had happened to Ethan, and no one could explain it. That's when I made my first mistake. I found his last known location, the motel, the place where he vanished. And like an absolute idiot, I decided to go there myself. The drive out took almost an hour. The place was exactly as Ethan had shown. An old, crumbling building surrounded by dead trees and cracked pavement. The neon NO vacancy sign was shattered, long since abandoned to rust and decay. I hesitated in my car, gripping the wheel. My instincts screamed at me to turn around, to forget about all of this. But I had to know. Pushing open the door, I stepped inside. The motel was dead silent. A layer of dust covered the floor, save for one set of fresh footprints. Ethan's. The same path he had taken last night, leading into the long hallway. I followed them. My breath felt too loud. My heartbeat thumped in my ears. When I reached the spot where his camera had fallen, I stopped. Nothing had changed. The same rotten wood, the same peeling wallpaper. But Ethan was gone. No sign of a struggle. And then, I heard it. A whisper. Soft. Close. Right next to my ear. My body locked up. The voice was wrong. Distorted, layered, like multiple people speaking at once. You shouldn't be here. I spun around, my flashlight darting over empty space. Nothing. Then I noticed my phone vibrating. A notification. A live stream. From Ethan's account. My fingers trembled as I tapped the screen. The video feed opened, and I felt the blood drain from my face. It was me, standing in the hallway. The exact moment I was experiencing, playing back on my phone in real time. Except, in the stream, something stood right behind me. I dropped the phone. My breath hitched in my throat as I forced myself to turn around. The hallway was empty, but I felt it. Presence. Watching. Waiting. The whisper came again, soft and hungry. You see now, don't you? The lights flickered. The air grew heavy. My vision blurred for a split second. And then, everything went black. I woke up on the floor. My head throbbed. My throat was dry. And my whole body felt wrong. Like I had been somewhere else. Like something had touched me. I sat up fast, gasping for breath. My flashlight was still clutched in my shaking hand, but my phone was gone. The hallway was darker than before. And then I noticed something that sent a spike of cold terror through my chest. The dust. When I had entered the motel, there had only been one set of footprints, Ethan's. Now, there were two. And the second set led directly to me. I forced myself to stand, swallowing back panic. I needed to get out. Now, I turned toward the entrance, ready to run. But the moment I did, I stopped. The door was gone. I mean, completely, utterly gone. Like the hallway had shifted around me. The space where the exit should have been was now just another long, stretching corridor, fading into darkness. My breathing came in short gasps. This wasn't real. This wasn't possible. I turned back, my only thought being to retrace my steps, find another way out. But then, a notification sound echoed through the silence. My phone, somewhere deeper inside the motel. A single message popped into my vision on my smartwatch screen. Ethan Graves, help me. I froze. He was still here, and somehow he had his phone. I followed the sound, deeper and deeper into the decaying building. The hallway stretched longer than it should have, as if the motel was growing, expanding around me. The air smelled wrong, stale, thick, like mildew and something else, something rotting. Another message came through. Ethan Graves, it sees you. Don't run. I stopped mid-step, my stomach twisting. Don't run? What the hell did that mean? A floorboard creaked. Not under my foot. Behind me. I turned my head slowly. At first, I thought the hallway was empty. But then, just barely visible in the shadows, I saw it. A figure. Tall. Motionless. Just standing there. Watching. His body was blurred, like it was out of focus. Like it didn't belong in this world. And its face. It had no face. Just darkness where its features should be. A new message flashed across my screen. Ethan Graves. If you run, it takes you. I was shaking so hard I could barely breathe. My legs screamed at me to run, to bolt toward any exit. But I didn't. couldn't, because I understood now. That's what happened to Ethan. He had run, and it had taken him. The figure twitched. A sharp, jerky movement, like a glitch in reality. Its head snapped sideways, as if it had heard something. Then slowly, started walking toward me. I didn't move. I didn't blink. My entire body screamed at me to run, but I forced myself to stay frozen. The thing in the hallway was getting closer. Its footsteps weren't normal. They were delayed, like the sound came a second after the movement, creating a sickening, offbeat rhythm. It was wrong, like reality itself was struggling to contain it. Another message flashed on my watch. Ethan Graves, don't look away. Don't speak. My pulse pounded in my ears. The figure was almost close enough to touch. Its head twitched, slowly tilting, as if studying me. I focused on my breathing, staying absolutely still. It stopped an inch from my face. And then, it whispered, "You shouldn't be here." The voice was a mix of Ethan's, my own, and something else. Something ancient, layered, endless. My skin crawled as I clenched my jaw, resisting the urge to scream. Another message. Ethan Graves. When it turns, walk away. Do not run. I wanted to cry. I wanted to wake up. Then, the thing twitched violently, its faceless head snapping to the side. It stood there for a moment, then slowly, began turning away from me. This was my chance. I stepped backward. One slow, careful movement. Then another. The figure didn't react. The hallway felt like it was stretching, warping around me as I moved. The air grew heavier, pressing against me like unseen hands trying to hold me in place. I kept walking, step after step. Then, a door. Right at the end of the hallway. One that hadn't been there before. I didn't question it. I moved toward it. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me, filling my head with broken voices. Static, Ethan's desperate screams. I grabbed the doorknob and yanked it open. I was outside. The motel was gone. The parking lot was empty, bathed in the dull glow of the street lamps. My car was still there. The world felt normal again, like none of it had ever happened. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A new notification. I hesitated, then looked. It was from Ethan's account. Ethan Graves, run. My breath hitched. I turned. The motel was back. And standing in the doorway was Ethan. Except, it wasn't. His body twitched violently, his limbs too long, his eyes empty black voids. His mouth opened, stretching too wide, and from it came that same layered, broken whisper. You shouldn't be here. I didn't hesitate. I ran. I don't remember getting into my car. I don't remember driving away. All I remember is the feeling of something watching me. And then, my phone buzzed one last time. Ethan Graves, it follows. I threw my phone out the window. I never spoke about it. Never told anyone what happened. I deleted my account. Stopped watching live streams. But sometimes at night, I swear I can hear it. A whisper. Soft. Close. You shouldn't be here. And when I check my notifications, there's always a new live stream from Ethan's account, waiting for me to click. It happened in broad daylight. 1 second she was there, and the next she was just gone. There was no scream.
No struggle.
No warning. One blink, and my best friend vanished into thin air. We had been walking down Fifth Avenue, chatting about nothing in particular. It was one of those crisp autumn afternoons, the city buzzing with life, cars honking, people laughing, street vendors yelling out their deals. I remember turning to look at her. Mia. She was mid-sentence, telling me some dumb joke about her boss, grinning like an idiot. Then, I blinked, and she was gone. The space beside me was empty. I stopped walking. My brain refused to process it for a moment, like a glitch in reality. Mia. I spun around, my heart hammering. She had to be here. She had been right next to me. But she wasn't. There was no sign of her. People walked past without a second glance, completely unaware that someone had just disappeared in the middle of a crowded sidewalk. Panic gripped my chest. I pulled out my phone and called her. It rang. Once. Twice. Then, she answered. But she didn't say anything. Mia gasped, relief flooding me. Where the hell are you? Silence. But she was breathing. I could hear it, shaky, uneven. She was scared. Mia, talk to me, I pleaded. Are you okay? Where are you? Then, in a whisper so soft I almost missed it. I don't know where I am. A chill shot down my spine. What do you mean? I asked. Her breath hitched. It's dark. I started pushing through the crowd, looking in every direction. Mia, listen to me. You were just here. You were right next to me. You! Then she said something that made my blood turn to ice. I can still see you. I stopped cold. My fingers tightened around the phone. What? I whispered. I can see you, she repeated. Her voice was shaking now. I see you looking for me. But you're not looking at me. I turned in a slow circle, my entire body tense. People bustled past, oblivious. Everything looked normal. But Mia, she was watching me from somewhere. Somewhere I couldn't see. The line crackled. Then, her whisper came again, barely audible. It's getting closer. The call cut out, and the number no longer existed. I redialed Mia's number. The number you have called is no longer in service. That robotic voice rang in my ears, emotionless, final. My hands were slick with sweat as I tried again. And again. Same result. I stood frozen in the middle of the busy sidewalk, my mind racing. She had just picked up. I had just heard her voice. How could her number suddenly not exist? My stomach twisted. I forced myself to breathe, to think. Maybe her phone had died. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe... No, I knew what I heard. I can see you, but you're not looking at me. I turned in another slow circle, scanning the street. The crowd moved like nothing had happened. People walked past, lost in their own conversations, their own worlds. Mia was gone, but no one else had even noticed. And yet, she could see me. I felt a prickle at the back of my neck. An instinctual, primal fear. I was being watched. I swallowed hard, then tried something desperate. I opened my camera. Flipping it to selfie mode, I held it up and turned, slowly scanning the street through the screen. At first, I saw nothing but the reflection of normal life. Cars, people, buildings. But as I passed over the spot where Mia had vanished, my breath caught. A glitch. For a split second, the screen warped, flickering like a corrupted video file. I moved the phone back. The glitch appeared again. Static crackling across the image, the faintest outline of a person barely visible before it vanished. Mia? I turned around, expecting to find something, but there was nothing there. Just empty space. My heart pounded. I hesitated, then lifted the phone again. The screen distorted worse this time, lines of static crawling up the image. And then, something moved, a shape shifting in the distortion. Tall, wrong, watching me. I felt a scream claw its way up my throat. My hands trembled as I lowered the phone. And in that exact moment, someone whispered directly into my ear. Don't look anymore. I ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away. Away from that voice, from the thing I had glimpsed in the screen, from the emptiness where Mia had been just seconds before. The city felt wrong now. The crowd moved around me, normal, oblivious, but I swore the faces blurred if I looked too long. Like they weren't real. Like the world had shifted just slightly into something else. I turned a corner and ducked into a coffee shop, my heart pounding. I needed to think. I pulled out my phone again, hesitating before opening the camera. The glitch might still be there. That thing might still be watching. But I had to know. I flipped the camera to selfie mode and froze. The screen was normal.
No distortion. No flickering.
Mia was just gone. Like she had never been there. My stomach twisted. I checked my call logs, scrolling frantically. Her number was gone, too. Not just the last call. Every call. Every text. Every trace of her. Like she had been erased. My breath hitched. My fingers shook as I opened my photos. Desperate for proof. I scrolled through album after album, selfies, group shots, old vacations. Nothing. Mia wasn't in any of them. It was like she had never existed. My throat tightened. This wasn't possible. I had known Mia since high school. We had years of memories. Pictures, messages, people who knew her. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't. A chime broke through my panic. A new text. I swallowed hard and opened it. The number was unknown. The message was one word. Help. My blood turned to ice. Another text popped up immediately after. It's watching you. I sucked in a breath, my pulse hammering in my ears. Then, my phone screen glitched. For a split second, another text appeared, flickering like static before vanishing. But I saw it. I saw it. You're next. And behind those words, just barely visible in the distortion, was a blurry, flickering image of Mia, mouth open, eyes wide in terror. And behind her, something tall, something wrong, something smiling. I dropped my phone. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out everything else. The coffee shop around me blurred into nothing. The air felt thick, pressing against my skin, my lungs. Mia was alive somewhere, but something had her, and now it wanted me. I forced myself to grab my phone, my hands trembling as I backed toward the door. I needed to get out, to get somewhere safe. But then I saw my reflection. The coffee shop had a wall-length window, and in the glass I could see myself, pale, shaking. And behind me, a figure, tall, thin, wrong, standing inside the coffee shop, just behind my shoulder. My breath hitched. I turned. Nothing. The shop was normal. Baristas working, customers sipping their coffee. But in the reflection, the figure was still there, closer. I choked on a gasp. My legs locked up, panic surging through me. Then, my phone buzzed. A new message. From Mia's number. Don't turn around. I swallowed hard. My chest heaved. Another message. If you run, it takes you. I clenched my teeth, forcing myself to stay still. My whole body screamed at me to run, to get out, but I couldn't. Not if I wanted to live. The reflection twitched. The figure's head snapped sideways, like it had just noticed something. Then slowly, so slowly, turned away from me. A new message flashed on my screen. Walk out. Slowly. My legs were weak, but I moved. Step by step, I walked toward the exit. I kept my gaze on the floor, kept my breathing even. Outside. Just get outside. I pushed the door open, stepping into the cool air. And the moment I did, the entire coffee shop fell silent. No sound. No movement. I turned. The people inside, every customer, every worker, were gone. The shop was completely empty. The lights flickered once, and then the inside of the coffee shop was pitch black. Like nothing existed beyond the glass. A final message popped onto my screen. Mia's number. It's not over. Then, just like that, the message erased itself, and her number disappeared. Again. It's been weeks. Mia never came back. No one remembers her. Not her family. Not our friends. It's like she never existed. But sometimes, late at night, I wake up to my phone buzzing. A new text. From Mia's number. One word. Run. And outside my window, in the reflection of the glass, something is always standing there. Watching. Waiting. Smiling. It started with a single text. Come over. Need to talk. It was from my best friend, Daniel. Nothing unusual except for the time. Daniel wasn't the type to text in the middle of the night. He valued sleep more than anything. So, for him to reach out at this hour, something had to be wrong. I grabbed my keys and drove over. His apartment was dark when I arrived. The front door was unlocked. I hesitated before stepping inside. Dan? No answer. The place was silent. And then I noticed something weird. His phone, the one he had just texted me from, was lying on the coffee table. Screen cracked, still buzzing with new messages. I picked it up, my stomach twisting. All the messages were from me. Me, I'm outside. Me, Where are you? Me. I'm coming in. But none of them were red. I took a slow breath. Then I saw something else. His bedroom door, it was closed. And from inside, his phone dinged. I froze. That wasn't possible. His phone was in my hand. Another ding. Another message. From Daniel's number. I'm in my room. I stared at the text. My whole body felt wrong. Like my skin didn't fit anymore. I reached for the door handle. Turned it. The door swung open. The room was empty. No Daniel. No sign of struggle. Nothing out of place. Except, his phone dinged again. I looked down. One final message. Turn around. And behind me, something breathed. I didn't turn around. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my body locked up. The breath behind me was slow, deliberate, like whatever was there was waiting for me to make a move. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't dare check it. Not yet. Instead, I took a slow, shuddering breath. Daniel. My voice barely sounded like my own. No answer. I gripped my phone tighter, my knuckles white. Then, slowly, I glanced at the screen. One new message. From Daniel's number. Don't look at it. My pulse skipped. Another text. Leave. Now. I didn't think. I didn't question it. I bolted. I sprinted through the apartment, down the hall, out the front door. The second I crossed the threshold, it felt like I had broken through something invisible. Like stepping from one reality back into another. The air shifted. The pressure in my chest lifted. I was outside. Safe. But when I turned back, Daniel's apartment window was pitch black.
No lights.
No movement. Like no one had ever lived there. The next morning I called him. His number was disconnected. I drove back to his place. The building manager let me in after I told him I hadn't heard from Daniel. But when we reached his door, apartment 302, the manager frowned. There's no one living here, he said. I felt my stomach drop. That's not possible. I was just here last night. He shook his head. This unit's been vacant for 6 months. I stepped inside anyway. It was empty.
No furniture. No clothes.
No sign that Daniel had ever existed. Except for one thing. His phone. Still lying on the coffee table. The screen lit up. One last message. From Daniel's number. It took me. Don't let it take you too. The phone died in my hands. And from the back of the empty apartment, the bedroom door creaked open. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a dull thud, but I barely heard it over the roaring in my ears. The bedroom door, the one that shouldn't have been able to move, was now slightly ajar, revealing a sliver of darkness beyond. Something was in there, watching, waiting. I stepped back, my pulse hammering. Daniel, I whispered, my voice hoarse. No answer, but the air shifted, like the room was breathing. I forced myself to move, stumbling toward the front door. I needed to get out. Now, then, a whisper. Soft, garbled, like someone was trying to speak through static. Don't go. My entire body locked up. I turned just a little, just enough to glance at the bedroom door again. And then, a hand slid around the edge of the doorframe. Too long, too thin. The fingers curled against the wood, pressing into it like the bones weren't solid. I felt my stomach drop. That wasn't Daniel. Whatever was in that room, whatever had taken him, wasn't human. And it wanted me next. I ran. I didn't look back. Didn't think. Just bolted through the front door and into the hallway, nearly slamming into the building manager. Whoa, kid! He barked, grabbing my arm. What the hell is wrong with you? I gasped for breath, pointing toward the apartment. Did you see that? He frowned. See what? I turned. The door to apartment 302 was closed, completely shut, like it had never been opened. My heart pounded. It was open. There was... I stopped myself, realizing how insane I sounded. The manager sighed, rubbing his temples. Look, I don't know what kind of prank this is, but there is no tenant in that apartment. I was just inside. I snapped. He gave me a tired, almost pitying look. You sure about that, kid? I turned back to the door. My hands were shaking. I had been in there. I had seen the phone, seen the messages, heard the whisper. But now, standing here in the dim hallway, doubt crept in. Had I imagined it? Had I imagined everything? I swallowed hard. Can I go back in? Just for a second. The manager gave an exasperated sigh but pulled out his keyring. Fine, but you'll see it's completely empty. He pushed the key into the lock, turned it, and the door swung open. I braced myself. But the apartment was different. Not just empty. Abandoned. The air inside was stale, thick with dust. The walls were stained, the floors scuffed. There were no lights, no furniture, no phone. Like no one had been in here for years. I swallowed hard.
No, y whispered.
That's not possible. The manager gave me a wary glance. You okay, kid? I barely heard him. I stepped inside, my pulse thudding in my ears. No sign of Daniel. No sign of anything at all. Except the bedroom door was still slightly open. The only thing in the entire apartment. I forced myself forward, reaching out with trembling fingers, and pushed it open. There was writing on the walls, scrawled in black ink, or maybe something else, in long, uneven strokes. IT took me, over and over, covering every inch of the space. The same words, again and again. I staggered back, my breath coming in short gasps. My legs felt like they weren't working properly, like I wasn't meant to be here. And then I saw it. On the farthest wall, the last message. A single sentence, carved deep into the wood. Now it wants you. The door slammed shut, and the lights went out. Everything went black. The air in the room turned heavy, thick like wet cement, pressing against my skin, my chest, my throat. Couldn't see, couldn't breathe. Then, the whisper. Not from behind me, not from the doorway, from everywhere. It wants you. I lunged for the door, hands shaking as I grabbed at the knob, twisting, pulling, desperate, but it wouldn't budge. Something moved in the darkness. Not footsteps, not breathing, a shifting, like the walls themselves were moving, curling in around me, stretching, growing, changing. Daniel, I gasped. Are you here? Silence. Then, a single knock, slow, hollow, from inside the walls. I stumbled back, my pulse hammering. Daniel. Another knock. Then another. Then a dozen. The walls shook with them, the sound growing faster, louder, surrounding me on all sides, trapping me. Then the whispers changed. They weren't words anymore. They were laughing, low, amused, hungry. And then, the phone rang. Daniel's phone. I felt my stomach drop. I didn't want to answer it, but my body moved on its own. Fingers shaking. I picked up the phone from the floor, pressed it to my ear, and the whispers stopped. Silence. Heavy. Waiting. I swallowed. Hello. For a moment, nothing. Then, a voice I recognized. But it wasn't right. It took me. Daniel. Or what was left of him. My grip tightened around the phone. Where are you? I whispered. Static. Then slowly. Behind you. My body turned before I could stop it. And in the darkness I saw him. Or something that looked like him. Tall. Too tall. Limbs too long. Face warped, stretched into something wrong. And his mouth was open. Wider than it should be. Wider than anything should be. Inside, there was nothing. Just a yawning, endless void. And he was smiling. I tried to scream, tried to run. But the walls collapsed inward. The door, the ceiling, the floor. Everything turned black. And then, the room took me too. I woke up in my own bed. The sunlight was streaming through my window. Birds chirped outside. Like nothing had ever happened. But I knew better. I felt it. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands, scrolling through my messages, my calls, my photos. Daniel wasn't there. No number.
No texts.
No proof he had ever existed. I jumped out of bed, threw on my shoes, and drove straight to his apartment. But when I got there was no apartment 302. The building was there, but the third floor didn't exist. It had never existed. I don't talk about Daniel anymore. No one remembers him. No records. No friends. No history. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I hear my phone buzz. A new message. From a number that doesn't exist. And it always says the same thing. It took me. Now it wants you. And when I look up, the bedroom door is open. Even though I know for a fact, I locked it.